The Maple Run Unified School District Board of Directors meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. First on the agenda, I just did it, okay. Second is agenda review. Would like to move the student representatives on item 8A right after the consent agenda so they can do their presentation and they can be on their way because I know they have a lot of homework tonight, right? Does anybody object to that?
So 8A to after 5? Okay.
Sorry, I'm confused.
Yeah.
We were gonna do after the.
Correct.
Little music there. And also like to add a couple things to the agenda. The request for an unpaid leave letter and a boiler bid for Fairfield, so that would be added to new business. H, J, and K. Great. Anything else for review agenda? Right, let's. Oh, need a motion to accept the agenda, please.
So
Thank you, Ryan. Second, thank you, Joanna. We will add H, J, and K, and move the students up. We will accept their motion and accept it and seconded. I have to go through this?
Yeah.
Okay, Al? Do you approve the amended agenda, Al?
Let me give you a close. He's on mute.
Al, you're on mute. Jack? Jack, you're on mute too.
Yes.
Nilda?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Grant?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Ryer?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Nina? Yes. Nelda? Sorry, Nilda. Nelda?
Yes again.
Trying to help you.
was trying to help.
Motion passes. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a visitor section tonight. Item number 4 on the agenda. Is there any visitors that would like to speak? Okay, Mr. Casavant, is there anybody, before you do, is anybody, did you sign in, Mr. Casavant?
Did I sign in?
Yeah.
Yes, I
You
did.
did, okay, thank you. All right, just want to read a little something before we do the public speak. The public comment visitor section of the meeting is an opportunity for community members to address issues of concern about policy, budget, or administrative matters, or to share ideas about how we can work together to improve our schools. We value input and respect divergent views. We ask that you limit your remarks to time restraints prescribed by the chair, tonight vice chair, and refrain from airing grievances with individual members of the school community, including respecting the privacy of students and parents. Those attending remotely may type their full name in the comment section if they wish to speak. During the meeting, comments may be disabled. And the time limit tonight, if you could just limit anything from 2 to 3 minutes. And thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Hoffman.
Thank you. I've got a couple of comments and a couple of questions. I think that there's some kind of misperceptions maybe on the board, stuff that's been said by the administration. I just want to be very clear. My daughter doesn't feel well supported at BFA. And I'll give you a couple of examples as to why. She was here on the 16th of March and spoke very eloquently as a young lady in front of all of you. The following morning, she was in senior study hall and went to the desk to ask to go speak to another teacher. And the substitute at the library said to her, "I don't know," when she asked if she could go to see this other teacher. "I don't know. I wouldn't want you to harass her." Georgia didn't know what to say to her. She turned and walked away, and as she did, she heard the teacher say under her breath, "You're known to harass teachers." The teacher didn't deny saying most of that, maybe any of it, sent a letter of apology to my daughter and to my wife. We went and spoke to Brett right away, we spoke to Bill the next day, and we were told by Bill that it was just a poor word choice. My daughter was here the night before. We're led to believe that that teacher didn't know, which is a staff member, didn't know anything about any of this. It was just a poor word choice. I don't think that's the case, and I think we need to think about that. I think we need to investigate that, and I think we need to take action against somebody that's going to further harass a student. Georgia doesn't feel supported. Bill, you wrote a press release. You spoke eloquently about everything. We shared all the evidence, included witness statements of both sides before any conclusion was reached. The parties then were given an opportunity to comment on the evidence before any conclusion became final. You never said that the claim was substantiated. What does that say to the community? How does that make my daughter feel supported? Later on, she talked to the advisor for the Social Justice Club, who said to her something to the, I want to support you, but I can't support any demonstration because I have a contractual obligation not to do that against another union member. So we've got a social justice committee that can't point out injustices if they're done by a staff member? That doesn't make any sense. But this is what Georgia's being told. Last week she was in class and a teacher said, "We need to go to the library to use technology." And Georgia said, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to the library. I'm not going to the library." And the teacher didn't really understand why she didn't want to go to the library. So instead, they went in another area, not in the library. She couldn't use the technology. And, afterwards, the following day, she came up to Georgia and said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't expect that of you. You're a great student. You've always been really engaged. I didn't expect that to you. I didn't know how to react to it. And I figured out why. I did some investigation and I figured out why. And I'm really sorry about that. As a matter of fact, I'm mortified that it happened. I don't know why we're not talking about this. I don't know why. So I came here tonight knowing that I was going to talk for a few minutes and leave, and I'd never hear anything again about this. To the board, I say, you guys are the representatives of the community. You got to be standing up screaming about this. It's just not right. I ask you a couple of questions, and these are rhetorical. But I would like you to think about it, and I would like you to reflect on it, and I would like to hear back on it. I'd ask, why do we have a social justice club? If they can't talk about and react to injustices perpetrated in the school to students, what do we have the club for? Get rid of it. Why aren't we talking about this? The perpetrator and the victim have both self-identified. Everybody knows who it is. There was an article in Vermont Digger, and the perpetrator self-identified. My daughter is self-identified. Her teachers allegedly don't know anything about this or have been told they can't talk about it. She's going to school and feels totally unsupported. And I guess the last question I would have is, how do we move forward? In that discussion with Bill, the Friday after Georgia spoke at your last meeting, I said, all I want to do is affect change. It's what we should be doing about this. And Bill's response, and I appreciate Bill because I think this was very candid of you, was you can't affect change, John. And if that's honest, and I appreciate that. But it's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. So I leave it to you to try and figure out how to affect change. But this has got to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? either online or in the room?
No online.
Any questions? All right, move on to the consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull any minutes, any corrections needed, any additions? Anybody online like to pull anything, any questions, anything needs to be addressed, changed, updated online? Take that as a no. We have a media packet too, that was attachment 5E. Okay, all right, have a motion to, do I have to do a motion for consent? Okay, all right, since we'll just move on to, we'll have the students go ahead and do their presentation.
Good evening, I'll give a quick introduction, and you won't hear much from me tonight, since the students did most of the work. So I'm Rep. Blanchard, Principal BFA. When I first got here, would have been just a year and a half ago, always seems time kind of blurs. One of the first things I did, which would have been July, was set up an invite to all the student leaders that were voted in before I got there, invited them to come in and offer kind of their thoughts and everything from the would-be scheduled and hybrid to everything else. Ended up with about 7 really hardcore students that met every 2 weeks, all summer, all year. It was great. This year I was remiss in following that model and then was nicely called to task by some students about student voice. So I will let them take the stage. I will introduce the students, and we now have a small group of kind of advisory students, and it was done simply by the student behind me were 3 that advocated for certain positions that you'll hear tonight. Then there's 2 others that are unable to make it tonight, but they also were involved, and I want to make sure that there was somebody at each grade level. So Drew Duckelman, a junior, I'll let her talk about it. Leah Fitzgerald is a sophomore, and we have Seth Richards, also a junior. Unable to make it tonight was Rowan Horrigan is at the Stowe game. They had to move it from last night to tonight. And then Dior Brannis supposed to show up tonight and must have gotten occupied with something else. So he's our freshman. So I will then hand it to Drew, Leah, and Seth, and I might make a couple comments as we go.
Like you said, my name is Drew Duckelman. I'm a junior at BFA. This fall, I took a course that was a semester long. It's called Sociology of Crime. We were learning about how the criminal justice system can affect schools. And so I was partnered with Roman for our end of the year project, or semester project. And we decided that we wanted to see how student voice would affect schools and change. And so we came up with this project and we pitched it to Mr. Blanchard and we interviewed him. We had to go through questioning and stuff and that sort of thing and getting all the background. And so we really wanted to do it because we thought, why not? Why shouldn't there be kids? We are who it's affecting, so why shouldn't we be there to show our perspective, not give our opinion, but we can, or that sort of thing, not vote, but show you our side of things, but that's valuable. I mean, we're the ones that it matters most to, I guess. So that was really the whole point, and then next slide. That was the first overall. Sure. A second.
My name is Leah Fitzgerald. I am a sophomore at BFA, and talking about what a student would look like on the board, kind of where we are now, coming in, talking to you about what we think needs to be changed or what can be helped in the school. So we would have a member from BFA, a BFA student, to come and talk, and we would have rotating elected representatives, so you would get different perspectives from each student. We were also thinking of how to involve other schools in the district and talking with SATEC and Saks Kids as well as Fairfield. They also have student councils that we are in contact with, so we are going to try and incorporate those middle schoolers with the high school. We have talked with their student council and they are happy to get involved with BFA, so we are incorporating other perspectives as it affects them as well. We are also going to be using pre-existing student clubs within the school, as in student council, social justice club, the athletic council, to see what they need as a school, trying to get lots of perspectives. Another way we were thinking of getting entire student representation was something called like be a part of the change, and having an open like forum to have students comment on what they think they want to bring to us to kind of collaborate as a group in this special committee, and then bring it to you guys as a uniform plan.
I'm Seth Richards, and I too was also in the sociology of crime class with Drew. And for my final project, I studied how can making schools start later. In specific, BFA. I did all my research at BFA. Help not contribute to the school to prison pipeline and make an impact on the industrial prison complex. And that's why I had to link it back to our learning. But you go to the next slide. I interviewed some students and Mr. Blanchard himself, and put up a forum that is available to anyone in the school at any time. Asked about how does their sleep schedule and how much time do they get to sleep, and how did that affect their life and their learning in school. And so I kind of presented how can a later start time really help the students. And there is no studies that say, that I could find at least, that say that early start time is helpful for students, and especially high school students, that is. Making a later start time can help benefit students a lot. Making a community where they feel represented, they have a voice in, like with Drew and Rowan are presenting, I feel like can really help a lot of the students, because in my data that you'll see in the next slide, it's represented that students feel that almost all of them, I think 95% is what we saw, wanted a later start time. Because they feel that they aren't given enough time by the school to do homework or extracurricular activities, and still have a sleep schedule and come to school and be awake for all their classes and still learn. We also theorized that a later start schedule can add consistency to the school day and sleep schedules for all the students, as I mentioned before. But it also helps with time management. One of the biggest things that I heard when interviewing students was that when their sleep schedule is inconsistent with practices or homework, inconsistent levels of homework they get every night, it makes it harder to budget time, because they don't know what's coming. They don't know what's coming up. They're tired throughout the school day, and sometimes maybe they'll miss something, and it adds inconsistency, and that's why they would like a later start time. If you go to the next slide, I had some data from the forums we pulled, but also the national average high school start time is 8:06, and that's an average, so taken with a bunch of stuff. So I think it's around 8:06, 8:10 kind of area. 8:10 is what we are asking for, I think, great. So my first point I was going to make was that 60% of the students polled believe they do not get the recommended amount of sleep per night, which is about 8 hours for a high school student. Most of the numbers I was seeing were between 6 hours of sleep a night for high school students. 68.6% of the students polled believe they don't get enough sleep to at least properly go throughout their day and learn. And so that's why I feel like later start time can really help with that, because you're awake to learn. And that's something that we kind of all need to be. But 71% of students say that the lack of sleep negatively impacts their ability to use logical approach to daily decisions and manage their time. And this lack of a logical approach was something that came up in my research for sociology, and it came up that a lot of delinquency in schools, there's a rising trend that a lot of the kids who are being deviant in schools don't get enough sleep, and it's easier to act on emotions and not think properly when you're tired and don't feel like, you know, sitting and thinking about it. Yeah, and 94.2% of students said they would prefer a later start time. So yeah, that's why we're asking for your questions.
So, this was brought up a while ago. We brought it to the faculty. What we're looking at next year is an 8:10 start time. Faculty would be 7:30 in the room. It would provide about 35 minutes, 3 days a week for students to be able to go access any teacher there. And then twice a week, right now Wednesdays, Fridays would be teacher collaboration, 7:30 to 8:05, 8:10 start. Seth mentions the uneven start time, because twice a week we start at 8:10, 3 times a week we start at 7:30. And Seth's absolutely correct. There's no national data that says 7:30 is a good start time for teenagers. It doesn't really impact the youngest. It's an interesting study of brain development and youth. But at the high school level, it's really unequivocal. 7:30 is too early. 8:10 is the national average. 8:30 is great. We're not going to do that. So 8:10, and it allows students to really not only get more sleep, but we could also, we're going to change our attendance procedure so that we have a vibrant, highly structured attendance that's going to go out this spring, so everyone will be aware of it. This allows, I think, an appropriate start time to say to students, you should be able to arrive by 8:10, and we're building in incentives, and then we're also obviously going to have consequences. That's not a harsh word. It happens to be, we need to have the 8:10 start, because unlike the last 2 years when they weren't in school at all, then partial in school, and now we're trying to get them fully in school, we really need to start next year showing that attendance matters. The later start time will matter for all the reasons Seth said, so that's what we're working on. An example of student voice, I think, having great meaning.
So did you say 8:10 across the?
5 days.
5 days, and then a couple of the days they'll be available, office hours prior to?
3 days. Right now, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Monday, Tuesday, Thursday will be office hours, 7:30 on. And then we'll also do Wednesday, Friday teacher collaboration during that time period. And it's also an opportunity for students to meet, like the athletic council, I see at 7 in the morning meeting. And you know, that's early. So it'll allow that time also for some meetings.
Will the bus be available on those 3 days a week at 7:30 for all students to be able to access office hours?
So the bus schedule would not change. Yeah, it's an immovable object, I
Yeah, we
think.
can't move the bus schedules.
No, but it is, you know, if you're making office hours available.
Correct. The buses will arrive as they do now. So they will get here, the students that take the bus. Yeah, and we still have some students getting here early, which we do provide breakfast early every day there. So, and we'll have a schedule. I didn't put it there on purpose because we have to make sure with NCTC and with MVU that we have some connection, so.
I have 2 questions. Will it affect the end time of school?
3 minutes.
Okay. Oh, so that answers my second one. So I was gonna ask how that will affect after-school activities. But as far as it then only changing 3 minutes, where is that makeup?
Yeah, and I hate to hijack this meeting on a new schedule when really here, I think, for the idea of student representation and then steps. I'm just letting you know that due to the student information, that's what we've worked on. I'll happily go in depth coming up. Yeah.
Will there be a follow-up study after this is already gone live? Will there be a follow-up study?
Yeah, this Google form will probably be a second version of this that'll go out, and also be a part of the change. Will can also be an open opportunity for students to give updates on how they feel the schedule works.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about the students being involved in the board activities. So you talked about a rotating, like a schedule of having different students being involved, how do you foresee those students being chosen? Do you foresee it being like, for instance, I immediately thought of like 3 students, 1 from each kind of like town to represent and then rotate that way, but maybe you can go and elaborate a little bit more into how you see those students being chosen and represented.
Our major thing was that we need different grade levels. That was like the major that we want to like focus on, because we can't just have all like seniors or juniors, because we need them to know what they're doing when we leave, and so it keeps going. So I think that was our major focus. I think that we could definitely, we wanted diversity, we wanted different point of views, like that sort of things. We don't just want one collective group of kids like all the same, because that's not going to be helpful. But that was basically our main points. We talked about like having like electing people. We haven't really thought about the whole system yet, but we've had like ideas and stuff thrown around. But
I think starting out with people who are in the committee at the moment, which would be
There's 5 of us, yeah.
Roman, to just get a start for it and then start to see which members of BFA really want to come and make a change and be here and present that to everybody. I think we have a strong start right now, and being a part of, we want students that are really a part of BFA and that care, and that students are able to come and talk to. That's another point that we thought it was important, that students are here because students are more likely to come to other students, and we do know more on what's going on and how the student body feels than some teachers may. And if students are able to come to us and really express their concerns, then it's a lot easier for us to share that with you guys.
So I would agree that if you're off to a strong start, you're here at the meeting and you've got some really great data points and you're already you're seeing some of your ideas become change, right? So can you let us know what that means to you? Like what kind of an impact does that have on you, seeing the work or seeing the ideas that you've had come to fruition and actually begin to make some change?
I mean, I know personally that, I know freshman year, I know I felt a lot like, that, we're just the students, we're being pushed into this big building and we're just being pushed around, told what to do. And it didn't really click with me until like sophomore year that, we have opportunities to be a part of the community that we're in. And so be a part of the change is something I'm excited about, because it's an open opportunity for anyone at any time to have an idea and submit it to us, the council that we're in right now, and to us to sift through it and present it to you guys. And I think if someone were to just come up with an idea as to how they can make the school better, and it comes to us and we actually make that happen, how impactful that can be for students, just be like, whoa, I can actually do something about the problems that I have, I feel like it makes school more of a safe place and less of like a place you just have to go to every day.
Yeah. Any questions online? Does anybody have any questions online? Can't see it.
Yeah, maybe go back to just one statement. A number of years ago, maybe 20 years ago, we did something similar to this with city council, and we had students come to it, and it was worked extremely well. The students added a lot to the conversation. It's a totally different perspective. So I would be in full favor of this. The problem with it, and hopefully this would happen here, is ours kind of died away when that particular group of students passed away. That there's that excited core, that's great to see. And when those people graduate, they kind of just moved on, and it wasn't picked up. So I would like to see some way of seeing that there's longevity to it, because I think it's a great idea.
And I think that's one of the things we're gonna really try and incorporate in the middle schools as well, and really connect them, because it's not only about BFA at high school, but all the other schools that are a part of it, and we would love to connect with the younger grades and show them how they can do it and build.
So you guys see yourselves as kind of like mentoring these young
Yes, and who it affects, because if seniors and juniors are only here for a couple of years, but me as a sophomore, I can see how it progresses, which is really nice.
And what were your grades over there?
Junior, sophomore.
Junior.
Okay.
And there's one more junior and then a freshman.
That was just very impressive. You guys were very even keeled, so I just really appreciate it. I appreciate the statistics. Can I ask you one question about the program or the PowerPoint you did? There was a map of the US
Yeah.
with different states. What was the representation of the different colors? What are the colors?
The colors meant, so the darker blue states are later start times.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
This article was just seeing, you know, how these later start times, you know, span across the U.S. and, you know, the average that we see is a little 8 o'clock and then later settings.
And is there an average for Vermont?
Vermont's average, if you can see, I don't know if you can read up on the top right, is 806.
Is what?
806.
806, okay. So 810 would be pretty much in line with it.
Yeah.
Just a couple points of information. One, and I put in your packet a piece from Addison Northwest and how they have procedures for student reps. And I would give that to the students and maybe they could edit that and say, what do they think about it? Not, sorry folks, I forgot to tell you, even though we've done it a couple of times. That is putting this in. And the second thing is there's a national organization on starting high school specifically later. And it's supported by the American Association of Pediatrics. I probably have the acronym wrong, but about this later start time, I think that's what Brett was referring to.
Seth.
Or Seth, yeah.
It's also backed by the CDC.
Right, and so there's a whole report and procedures for, and tons of research behind it, so.
And I mean, a lot of communities do it also, so they can link them at the end of the day, because studies show that when young people are under supervised, right, more problems occur. So if they're in school for later and then go directly into other things, or they go home to parental supervision, it's better for them. So, I'm all for it.
Okay, is there any questions online? There's a lot of people.
Question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Greg.
So what are is it creating a policy and
So-
what what support do you guys need from the board? Would you like us to provide something, or are you going to propose something?
Why don't you guys go first and I.
Do you have a sense for how you'd like this to work?
We were thinking of having one student each meeting, coming in and either having like a comment, time to kind of give a little update on like how's the school going, or if maybe we did need to make a presentation, then we can put one up there. Or if there's anything that we know specifically that's going to be talked about in the meetings that is about high school, we would love to put our input, and if you guys have any like need our perspective, we would love to hear that, or just to even be here in the meetings and understand what's going on and reiterate that back to the school and back to our clubs would be really great.
Okay.
And making it more of a common thing.
So fairly clear proposal.
Right.
How do we?
So how's the board go forward?
Yeah.
There are some boards that haven't, first of all, the Vermont statute allows them to be a student board rep. Most of the boards where that is, it's a constant one person. I'm not objecting, I'm just giving you information. I want to totally support that. And it would actually have two, usually a junior and a senior, so they get to learn how the board works and there's that rollover. The piece that Peter was asking about is how do we kind of memorialize this so we don't lose it? That's where you might want to think about a policy. And that you allow students to decide how they're very rep. The policy can be simple, we would like to have 1, 2, 3, whatever the number is. Be a member of, a non-voting member on the board, that's part of the statute piece. And you saw that probably if you looked over the Addison Northwest procedures. And then also not an executive session, so they're not involved in personnel or student issues. And that I think it's good. I really like how Addison Northwest has it. They don't have a policy, but they have the procedures, so it's easy to change. And then usually either the high school principal and or the superintendent is a liaison to the group, not crafting at all their message, but saying, hey, are you aware this is what's coming up on the agenda? You might want some time to prep, because what happens between myself and Milda is usually right after this meeting for the next meeting, we'll be talking about like, what do we see coming? And that's always good to give the students a heads up. And so they know what's going on from that point, because so that's the way you can react, you gotta have some time. So that, I've seen that done with the high school principal or the superintendent or both.
And we currently meet every other week.
Yeah, and I've met with you once, but just that piece, it's just easier usually for the high school principal because they're there. And I've also saw an example in New Hampshire of a district, the Shaker Regional District, where the students are on the board, but they do something similar to what our students are proposing, where they have a model where they have almost a student senate, and it does go down, almost down to upper elementary, which I think would do for middle school. We're talking about, I think you were talking about 5th grade.
Yeah.
When you came to middle school, correct? So yeah, that was like 3rd, 4th grade, but a way to get that information exchange and having meeting times to support it. So Shaker Regional outside of Laconia has that.
So is anyone on the board opposed to having a policy? No, Kathy?
That's right. I hope it's more,
Okay.
less afteral than what's being suggested. I mean, I hope there's like a presence here.
Right, yeah.
More than just comment. I mean, I know you guys are talking about a comment, talking about that, but I really would appreciate, you know, whether it's rotating or something, a representative at meetings, every single meeting, like, and not just commenting, but.
Well, and like I said, I'd like to see a couple. I mean, I'd like to see, you know, more than just one, if that's something you guys would be willing to do.
And I don't think it just has to be senior. I mean, Leah, Leah's presence here suggests that a sophomore also would be.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not.
No, yeah,
I'm just trying to tell you what's happening.
I just think it'd be great to have a wide array of perspectives.
I'm totally in support of them designing it.
Yeah, and they've already designed a bunch, but they agreed that having 2 members here, especially with their variety, like Rowan was planning on being here, and then bad weather or whatever fields, and so having 2. And they've kind of made a continuance for the next level if you have, for example, Leah, and whatever freshman will also be part of it. And then the part we still have to work out is how do you decide next year who is part of this group?
So it seemed like we used to have a referee. Was there a policy around that? And that wasn't that long ago.
No, when I was here, when I came, Susan, there were people that would, so I think the best way is just to straight say it. And is that there were 1 or 2 students that would come to the BFA meetings only.
Right, okay.
And they wouldn't come to other meetings. They would only come, and there was an excuse, that's the only way I can think of it, is that, well, they'll only attend when they're at BFA. And I've talked to the students, they're like, wherever you guys are at, we're coming. And I think that was more of a, yeah, I just don't know, I don't want pass judgment, I just want to say that's what I was told. And then I know that, and Nilda's told me this, from being on the BFA board, when it was just a BFA board, there were student reps there all the time. So I want to encourage the involvement.
So more of a commitment.
It's got to be a commitment to come in all the time. I think we need the voice. We need the student voice at this table.
Yep, so what are the next steps?
So I heard the next step. I saw a tacit agreement from Grant's question saying, let's do a policy. So I could say the same thing I said to the last policy that you want to see for tonight that's in here. I can go find a policy. It's pretty easy to change names and bring you that draft.
Well, I would propose something different.
Yeah.
And that is have the students get involved with the policy making process, understand how that works if you guys are willing. I think that could be a good experience. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
I've got to give these seniors too to maybe draft.
If you're willing to work with them on that, or
Oh, I have a hard time with those students.
Yeah.
Of course, I want to be students.
maybe it'd be a really great way to get that policy.
So we'll do that.
So we get the policy to them?
Well, what I actually think that what Grant's saying is right is have you guys research, do some Google. It's not hard on Google. Student rep, board rep policy and laws and say, what does it look like? One of the things we try not to do on this board is not to draft a policy that's already called for in law. So if it said that in Vermont statute, it allows for a student representative, that we don't need to have to say, but we may say, so this is how it's going to work. You know, and then the procedures are more detailed of how it works. And I can work with them on that, the difference between policy and procedure. And so can Mr. Blanchard.
When can we?
So how much do you guys meet?
We meet every other week, Wednesdays during enrichment.
So if we did that, what do you think, Brett? Give us a month to 2-3 meetings to get us forward? And not that they couldn't come, but just to get a policy. So I want to say that I don't think you need a policy to have them here, but that it would probably take 2 or 3 meetings for us to get through that.
We're also getting towards the end of the year too, so it'd be nice to get that.
Right.
So if they can come now, we can get it done in a month, yes.
Yeah.
More precisely, they can get it done.
They can get it done. and you and I can make sure our schedules are locked, so I have time to come and help.
Good job.
We can talk.
Okay?
So we'll see you in a month, right?
28th, no, they see him on the 28th, from what I just heard. It's all the nods and heads of having to come next meeting.
Yeah,
We'll come next week, the policy, okay.
The policy will take a month, but they can start coming.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Well,
Good, great.
Okay, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
guys.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, look forward to it.
They're gonna need a later start time if they're gonna have
Oh.
school.
Good camp, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Bye. Bye. All right.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Okay, all right, the next one is number 6, report to the board.
Yep.
So,
Yep, so I'm going to provide the report to you on students. It's called the Panorama Student Survey. That's a piece of software that we use. Panorama is a national company that provides social emotional learning work and support, and it also provides data warehousing for students. We use it for our academic and social emotional. It has national level surveys that are given. Normally, this would be Alexis White's work to do, and I'm doing it in her absence. I want to be really clear, this is Alexis's work. Since she's out right now on leave, I'm standing in for her. I actually asked members of the leadership team if they wanted to do it, and I got the resounding silence. Bill, so okay, I'll do it. Because there's a lot of people that really should be represented in this work. There's also the social emotional learning committee. So I gave you the full report in the board packet. I'm not going to use all the slides tonight because we could be here and we have a lot on our agenda. This is a survey that we gave. We used a custom survey. Next year we are going to go to a national norm survey in SEL so that we can look at what's happening in the nation comparatively to what's happening in the board. So, yes.
Are we not using the youth risk behavior survey?
We're using that too, yes. Yeah, but it's not fine-toothed enough to be able to really look at it, to look at our data and subgroups, because how we receive the information from these behavior survey doesn't necessarily break it out the way we'd like to see it. I understand. Yeah, I understand that. We can't get down to the fine-toothed details. So we're going to be doing both, and we use both. So I'm just going to go through and print out. If you can go to the next slide, John. I just want to caution us all. I wanted to disaggregate this as much as possible. But some of our subgroups are 10 or less students, and in the state of Vermont, we cannot release student data on a subgroup if there's less than 10 students or less. So there are some points in this report, and you'll see, especially for racial, I had to combine. I didn't want to combine, but this is a public report, so I can't release anything. With this survey was administered to grades 3 and 5 with a certain set of questions, and then grades 6 through 12 with another set of questions, where in grades 3 through 5 there was a category of supportive relationships, and grades 6 through 12 there was a category of inclusion and diversity. So those questions, that's how this was broken up. If you go to the next slide, John. I think it's just good that when we look at this, I gave you all this in the report, but just kind of looking at how I was able to break up for this report the different subgroups to take a look at. So you can see we are starting to get in it, and if I took that, I'm going to go right to, because you can see all of these. And Hispanic Latino is a good one to kind of give you that indicator. We had 13 students, so I can release that. And that's in grades 3 through 5. So I'm going to show you just some slides of note. One of the things that I did, since we have such variability in some of our populations, while you might see a big percent difference, there's not a statistical significance difference. And so I ran a z-test on all of this data to see when there was a significant difference or not, and calculated all that work. So in doing that, in looking at supportive relationships, first of all, I should go through this. This is our response rate, and this is the first time we've done a survey like this that I've heard from my colleagues on the leadership team. And so you can see the 4 big areas: supportive relationship. I don't need to read the data to you, but you can kind of see how that's running in grades 3 through 5. I can also tell you that in grade levels in 3 through 5 and later on, we also saw a decreasing favorable response rate as kids got older. We see that in other surveys as well. That's not just in this one. We've seen that.
Bill, how were these kids chosen, just randomly?
We asked for every classroom to have their students take this survey.
Okay.
And I should point out that 85% of the students in grades 3 through 5 did. And I'll talk about when we get to 6 through 12. We need to do a better job to ensuring our teachers have our students take the survey. This is our first time through it, so this is really baseline data for us. We're going to do this again after April break. This exact same survey. We want to see it pre-post.
Was there a reason why those kids didn't? The 15% didn't take it?
Probably not administered in the classroom. Teacher following directions.
So to make sure, I just didn't know.
No, it's a great question. It's a really valid question. And we actually had to run it twice because the first time people were told to do it, we had such a low response rate, we couldn't even use the data. So we ran it again in early December when we had asked the beginning of November. It's a little bit of a new concept. Let's just say it that way.
Is it able to be read to students? Is it able, are there different?
John's giving the nod, yes, he's pretty in depth with this.
Yeah, it has a pretty in-depth accommodations dashboard that you can set up for kids. But the kids have to actually select and use it if that's what they want. Yeah.
I used to just read it to a kid backwards, the wire, but yes, but I just was wondering if there was other ways. Great.
Yeah. So I'm going to just show the slides where we had statistical significance. So under the school safety, which is the next one, there was a significant difference between our BIPOC community and our white community of school safety. And that favorability. And all I'm showing you there's percent of students that said that they had a favorable response. So it was a Likert scale with strongly agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. So that's the way this was set up. So that's the only one where we had significant difference in all of the 3-5. While there you see other percentages that didn't pass the Z-test on that. Moving on to 6-12, and I just know we have a lot on our agenda, so slow me down if I'm going too fast. You start to see some of here, and you have it in your packet of the breakdown by different subgroups. And the numbers that are there. John, can go to the next slide. But I wanted to let you know that out of the high school, we had a 57% response rate. In the middle school, we had a 66% response rate, and the total time was 60% across grades 6 through 12. Brett, I think is right. You did this during advisory at the high school, in one of the advisory periods. So that's when it was administered, and I know that there was a couple of days to do that. And at the middle school, it was done the same. At the K-8s, they did it all the same. So, as you can see, we were able to report on a few of the individual racial areas, but there were some we had to combine, so those are noted by stars on there. As I said, I'm trying to release as much data as a subgroup. I think that's the only way we're going to make changes by able to take a look at that. So again, you can see the favorable response rates in grades 6 through 12. I know if I showed up here and I didn't bring a slide of it, but if I looked at this with grade levels, we would really see that response rate tailing off. I think 9th grade was our lowest overall in all areas, and maybe the juniors, but we actually came up a little bit.
So you tailing off as they get older?
Yeah, they might get, the favorability gets much lower. And from my experience in high schools and working in high schools, that's my experience. For years I've seen that. Not that that's a great thing, it's just,
right.
It is. So going forward, we're going to look at each of these because there's significant differences in each of the areas. When we look at the diversity and inclusion, there's a significant difference in the gender response between male and female. So that's something to look into. When we go to the school safety, there's a significant response in school safety perception and a positive response in the gender, as well as in lunch status between students that are not eligible and students that are in free lunch. And you'd say, wait a minute, that's an 8%, Bill, you're skipping over some others. It's because of the relative populations are pretty close, so you can have a much smaller percentage to get a significant difference. When the populations get closer to each other, you can have a smaller difference. So if you can go to the next slide, the sense of belonging, we had a significant difference between gender here again, and in our American Indian, Native American population and the white piece, the white response. And then on the school climate, we had a significant difference in the gender. That was our only one there. So kind of looking at this overall, you have these next two slides, I didn't put them up here, our data observations. We looked at this as a leadership team over 2 meetings and tried to say what were our positives and areas to look at. And so I just wanted to kind of give you this breakout. When we look at the different classifications, gender by far had the most significant differences. There were singletons in 3 through 5 for safety between the BIPOC community and the white community. And there was in a sense of belonging for the American Indian compared to white and the free and reduced lunch comparison. So from there, we looked at this as a leadership team, and go on to the next slide. We were actually pretty pleased with school safety, with what we've been going through the pandemic. And I want to say overall, one thing that's not on here, when we first saw this, we're like, wow, this isn't as bad as we thought it would be with where we are with the pandemic right now, and the culture that we feel qualitatively. There's student trust in adults. We saw that in comments. I didn't put all the comments up here. That's a lot. We did do a theme analysis of that. We thought kids grades 6 through 12 had a good sense of belonging. I don't need to read all of these to you. The 3 through 5 felt really accurate because they seemed to really engaged in school, very happy belonging in school. We were pleased in places where we saw that the Black and African American students have a higher sense of belonging than we see in our other populations that we have. And the kids with IEPs and 5 core responds in line with their peers. So we felt that was really good. We're tremendous on that. We want issues that we really want to learn a lot more about, and this is going to get into other ways of gathering information we can't get out of the survey. The sense of belonging as students get older really drops. Why is that? We need to probe that more. Students not feeling connected to the adults when they trust them over students. Like we saw a lot of comments that there's issues with not feeling connected to the adults. 6 through 12 grades, male respondents were more favorable than females overall, whether it was statistically significant or not. We see the impact of social entity not having school due to COVID, and now we have 4 weeks of normalcy. The first 4 weeks without masks, how's our data going to look this spring compared to what it was last fall? We've had a lot of conversation about just the social context that happens that now people can see our expressions. And what's that going to do? Is that going to be good, bad, different? And then we had some repeats in here about general comment. We want to investigate some of the student comments that don't trust students. Why is that? And does the data match our lived experience and our personal observations that we're seeing? We're not sure that it does or does not. I give you that. I didn't try to do every row. I tried to get all that. That's really our presentation. As I said, we're going to run this again right after spring break, probably the last week of April, first week of May, and we'll have more data to share with you on this. I just thought it was important for all of you to have this social life. And it's took a long time to get to you, and I apologize that we didn't bring it sooner when we did this in November and December, and that's really, we are just in our first year with Panorama, and we are learning technical issues, not with the kids, but how to use the software and how to get the results out of that.
You talked about issues to learn more about.
Yeah.
How's that follow-up going to happen?
Well, that's what we need to talk about as a leadership team, of how do we do that to get that information from students in a way that it will be authentic and where they feel safe to share that information, and that can happen where they're not going to feel, like I said, that's just safe. I think that's enough not to be repetitive about it. We haven't designed that piece.
Okay.
And Brett, go ahead.
Seth is gonna create a QR code of which students could just scan their phones and offer feedback. This is the idea we're having. It would actually go to a student committee, so there's no names. It would be a small committee, because we'd have to vet through comments about names and people and stuff like that. But it's a way that every single person could give feedback whenever he or she wishes. And Seth's specialty is a lot of computer stuff, so
Yeah.
he explained it to me, and my answer is just get it.
And I think that's a good, I think what Brett, what you're talking about, having the students here and having another content to bring that to the show. And bring that to the administration and bring it to everyone, not just to the board.
Is there a low-tech option for,
Yeah,
to have folks that have access to low-tech options?
yeah, they bandied about a whole bunch of different ideas. The idea was, how can you do it with an anonymous kind of response, as well as a frequent one? So it was yeah, there's all sorts of combinations that they were thinking of, and they have some very good ideas.
Any other questions?
When we do the info in April,
We'll do it, we just,
Yeah, can you get teaching demographics for us? The demographics of the actual teaching staff in the schools?
So this is one of the problems with our system. My answer should be yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have learned when I first got here that demographics were done on our staff.
Okay.
So we are trying to get that data put together.
I'm just curious.
No, I think it's a really, I'm curious too.
I think with gender, maybe, like, I don't know how that plays in, but I just
Right.
think if like, there are.
And I will tell you, I did bring you tonight, and it would take a little bit, and we've given it back to the teachers, but we ran a staff survey as well at the same time on social, emotional, and the climate. We have all that, they've been given that information back as staff, of where that is. And there, it's no news to anyone here, we all know the staff is just overwhelmed right now, and close to burnout, so.
Is it common practice for this kind of survey to essentially sample the entire population? Or
So, yes, it is.
Does that cause problems with I mean, you're doing statistical significance on something that's essentially a full response. Is that appropriate?
From what I have done in the past and seen done in the past, it is. I have experience of this being done all the way back to the mid-2000s.
Yeah.
And I was actually concerned when I came here that this type of information wasn't being gathered. It may have been in the past before I was here, so I'm not saying, I didn't ask the question if we've done something like this before, but that's something that I have experienced in all the school districts I've been in, it's something we were gathering from students along with the YRBS. So we would ask different questions and process that and know where the student climate and the staff were at on a yearly basis. And we're, as I talked to you, then I want Alexis to come and talk more with all of you when she's back about the plan for using this tool as a measure of our SEL program and our teaching and supports of the climate in the schools.
I guess my only recommendation or concern would be that because you do have such a high response rate, don't put too much emphasis on the statistical significance, especially if there's something that is sort of high risk, that even if it's a marginal difference, it may be something to address.
Oh, yeah, no, you and I could go into a statistical corner right now. So I agree with you, but I think you also have to look at that. That doesn't, because it's not significant, doesn't mean you don't look at it. It just means you need to know that. And it doesn't mean, I gave you those 2 pages that have, there's a lot of no's on there.
Yes.
It doesn't mean we're not gonna look at it. It just means statistically where you're at, and that's the problem with statistics. It can really diverge in both ways.
It can hide some.
It can hide a lot. I'm not trying to hide something, I'm trying to be appropriate when we look at it. Yeah.
And then you look at a number of years,
Right.
against trend information,
Right.
and you would wanna look at the students.
I mean, another concern is that some of these changes are developmentally appropriate as boys get older, and they become less trustworthy and so on. I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be looking at these things, but I think we also need to be aware that some of this we can't change.
I'm not sure I agree with that, Peter.
Well, that's okay.
I'm gonna be outright, just saying, don't think I agree with that.
I accept your disagreement.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Anybody online? All right, old business. A, COVID update. Bill?
I don't have much for you with COVID. I will tell you that we are seeing a slight change in some of our staff absences. We're not sure if that's due to COVID or not. Literally this week, a little bit of an uptick. There's a little bit of an uptick happening in the state, but we haven't changed anything with our procedures and how we're working. What?
It's the belly button.
It's the belly button. Oh, I know, yeah, well, that we know. So I sent an email to the leadership team for tomorrow when we're in this room. I said, please, just bring your staff absence data, because they're still tracking it. And let's talk about whether it's COVID or it's something else. And I kind of was whispered that same thing, but it's not necessarily COVID.
So bad.
So,
Okay.
but that's why I have on COVID.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, old business, implicit bias and anti-racism training.
Yeah.
Bill?
So, as I told you at the last meeting, we were working with a group to get a proposal to run community forums. And they came back with some great ideas, but it's over $40,000, which I'm not shocked about, that's pretty normal. So that means we need to go to bid. And so my friend over at that side of the building said, no.
Put it out to bid.
Put it out to bid. So I wrote an RFP and I have it out to 2 other organizations to look at. And I hope, because I put a date of April 20th to get me something back, we'll have bids for you for the next board meeting to be able to give that information and approve an organization to help us with that.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay, moving on, old business, setting goals. Grant, I guess you are up for this.
Okay. You an action for this?
No, this is before this is the.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I just had drafted you without telling you.
Right.
Sorry, it's fine.
So we had a goal setting committee meeting, last week, 2 weeks ago. Last week, okay. And let's see, I guess, big picture, take home points from that meeting were that, we focused on the organizational goals. That's probably important. At one point, I think in a previous meeting, we talked about having this committee tackle both organizational and board sort of operations. That still may happen, it just hasn't happened yet. The committee last time was focused just on organizational goals. And I believe we decided that we were going to solicit input from the community by expanding the committee to include community members. And we were going to do that sort of on a volunteer basis and put out a request for volunteers in the way that, the same way we have previously for other committees. And that community participation would augment the members that are already on this committee. Would be the recommendation, I guess, because that's a little bit of a scope creep relative to what this committee was originally designed for, which I believe was to create the rules for setting up a committee to provide the goals and objectives. And so rather than doing that, we're going to recommend that this committee actually provide the goals and objectives with input from the community. So it's a little bit different than how we set out.
How do we want to get to volunteers? Was that discussed? Or?
So I haven't been involved with a group that's tried to form a committee this way previously.
You asked me to draft something
Yeah.
from all the notes, and I haven't had a chance to draft, and we're looking, I think we have agreement the next Wednesday we're all gonna meet.
Yeah.
So I'll have something prior to that, so you can all look at it.
We were also looking at, trying to fill certain representation fields too, right? So people from certain domains within our community.
How many volunteers are you thinking?
I think we decided we wanted a total committee size of 10. Was I think the round number that we came up with, in addition to, I want to say 5 that we have from the board. And we had kind of a breakdown of stakeholders that we brainstormed. I can't remember all the stuff in my head, but it was the standard thing. There was some
Yeah.
parents and community members and
Students
students and staff.
And when do you need the volunteers by? Is there a date?
Sooner rather than later. Did we
Yeah,
have a date?
I think, well, I was supposed to bring this back to you. I
Yeah.
think you were gonna then go forth, whether
So
you
no
bring it
next week
forward.
probably, or what, do
Yeah.
you need this week, next week, whatever?
Yeah, so we'll meet next week,
Okay.
and when the request will go out to volunteers, there will be around volunteer selection as we've done in the past, and we'll convene the full committee. To
And
actually,
there's-
business on the committee.
Is there criteria for volunteers too, or? is
We don't have a criteria
Okay.
at this point. And I don't think we have in the past, really. When we selected, like, it's always just.
Well, I think there was just, again, I think there's just a.
I mean,
kind of
criteria,
spread.
I don't know if you want to say criteria, but just domains, just representation of
Diversity.
certain domains.
Diversity.
Right.
Okay.
So there's that. And then I think the idea was to actually have goals in place by the start of the.
I wasn't saying the start, but my proposal to all of you was somewhere in the fall, that there
Yes.
are goals brought to the board.
So stretch goal. I'm good at stretch. I'm good at setting stretch goals.
You said for organizational goals, will that be communicated to everybody at MRUSD?
Well, I think there's gonna be one of the things that we talked about, and this is what my homework is to write something up, is to have it, so this group, you have this group, they design the process, they figure out ways to get input based on 2 or 3 questions, and then take that input and have some sort of forums, and then take that, write some goals, and then have a feedback process, did we get the goals right from what we heard from you?
I guess I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
But, okay, all right. So we'll hear more then, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Do you need anything from us, you guys?
You know, just sort of consensus agreement that the new direction that we're taking this committee in makes sense. Because I don't think it's necessarily the expectation was set out. So,
Okay.
other objections to?
Did everybody hear that online? I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Nilda, did you hear what Grant said? Jack, Al?
It's not easy to hear.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I'm looking this way, we looking
Yeah.
this way.
I think we need now.
Grant, can you just
Yeah,
paraphrase,
so,
please?
the big difference, the big thing I guess to report back to the board on is that we have changed the approach a little bit, and that is, instead of having a committee to select the committee that will be, developing the goals and objectives or aims or ends, what we'd like to do is actually have this committee form sort of a foundational group that will be augmented by members of the community and that committee will actually be setting goals and objectives.
Drafts to bring.
Sorry, drafts and recommending to the board.
Did you hear that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I actually heard all that, I heard all that before.
And so, and so the other, you know, so since that is a change, you know, if anyone on the board objects to that approach, we'd like to know about it.
I mean, as long as we get something to react to, you know, I think that's what we need. So,
Any other questions, comments? Sounds like good direction. Okay. All right, let's see, old business, letter D, governance recommendation. So Grant, you are up for this too, but just to, I think, Bill, you had sent out that thought exchange, and I hate to admit it, I didn't get a chance to fill it out. So I don't know if we want to still go ahead with a recommendation with our input, or do we want to give everybody a chance to have the feedback? Sorry, Al, is that you? Yeah. Al, you're on mute. He's talking.
Yeah, he's talking too.
Al, you're on mute. There you go.
Good. I'm trying to get it. Am I on now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Point of order. What's the committee's recommendation?
So we presented a recommendation last time. Should I put that recommendation in the form of a motion?
If everybody feels that
Yes,
we're
yeah.
at a point or to do that,
Okay.
because I guess my point is that we only have 3 responses.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that the board adopts a results-based governance model with procedures adapted from policies adapted from the documents that we've received, that we've reviewed, and that are in our resource packet, with this might be procedures that are adapted from policy governance for the specific workflows.
And Aaron, can you?
Does that,
If you repeat the motion, I'll possibly second.
That's what I remember you saying.
it's, yeah.
Aaron,
I don't know if I can simplify or not, but.
could I have you repeat that? Please.
That the board adopts a results-based governance model with policies adapted from documents received and reviewed with procedures that adapted from policy governance.
I think that's right. I mean, that's what we had proposed last time.
Yeah.
As succinctly as I think I can make it.
No, that's it. Does anything that?
I would second the motion.
Okay. I think we need, okay. Any other, is there discussion? Any, Jack, Nilda, Al, do you have any questions about the motion?
I would like to hear the motion again.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Aaron to read it one more time, if you could read it, just maybe. To Al. Yeah. Al, Aaron's gonna read it again, okay? Yeah.
What's that?
Aaron's gonna read the motion again, just a second, okay?
Please.
That the board adopts a results-based governance model with policies adapted from documents received and reviewed with procedures that adapted from the policy governance.
Okay, any other questions, discussion?
I'm happy to explain and go into greater detail as part of the discussion, if that would be helpful.
So,
Can't do that.
so what, is somebody talking?
Nilda, it's all you.
It's all you, Nilda.
So there's a motion to adopt the results-based recommendation using the policy governance policy. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
So the results-based governance has a slightly different structure than policy governance. And it requires the board to come up with procedures for how to execute the receiving of reports and feedback on reports. Policy governance provides those procedures. It has what we need in order to execute those workflows. And so we would use that as a resource. We would not take all, 100 some odd sub-policies from policy governance, but we would take those ones that provide the pertinent and valuable workflows that we would need for a results-based system.
Okay.
And that's why
And so
it's
is-
adapted from, because we wouldn't simply say we're taking those policies.
And is that recommendation that administration start working on developing those policies? Or?
So I guess I'm going to chime in a little bit here, Nilda. It's really a board discussion, but one of the things the board subcommittee asked me to do, Jack and Nina and Grant, which I provided them, was an audit of the results-based policies looking at what we have now and what we would need to add from their model templates. It wasn't very many to do a results-based policy, because much of statute covers what they have in their policy, because they do a lot for nonprofits. And then what Grant's talking about is the workflow for reports and the board monitoring the work of the organization using the policy governance monitoring model, but not any of their policies, and that would be a procedure for how the work flows. I don't know if that helps at all, but there's probably, I think there was about 10 or 12 policies, and a lot of it was, we had their templates in Word, so it would be copying them, doing kind of what I did for the flag policy that we're gonna look at in a moment, putting Maple Run on it, having you discuss it through policy adoption, whether you like it or not, and go through that. You'd have to go through that work. That way it would codify the work. And then we started all this by trying to codify the work between the organization and the board and the superintendent, so we all know, have a better documented piece of how do we work as a group.
Gotcha.
Well, let me ask the chair of that committee a question. Hold up.
Go ahead, Al.
Were you making, when you made your report, you gave us two options.
Yes.
Now you're going to bring it down to one option, right?
Yeah, it's a blended of the two. That's the recommendation. It's a blended.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So we vote on the policy, not the procedures.
No, it's both of them.
No, what he's talking about is the board votes on policy, procedures, something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I didn't understand the question. Correct, Al. You're correct.
Call the question.
Okay. What's the question?
Al, if I'm not wrong, when you call the question, that still requires 2/3 of the board to approve you calling the question before the question voted on.
Well, to be exact, it requires a second.
Okay, and then it requires 2/3?
No.
I think it does. Al, I'll second your calling, but it does require voting on before you vote on it. Because that way, you're giving too much power to one person can call the question. The rest of the board has the right to either approve or disapprove the voting. If you look at Robert's Rules of Order, that's what it is. Maybe we're not mentioning Robert's Rules, I thought we were.
I don't understand you.
It's time to.
You're right.
Where to vote on calling the question.
Wait a second, I want to hear that.
Robert's rules, you have to, you use small words, is when the question, you have to vote on this call to the question. And whether that's-
Exactly right.
That's there.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It was already.
So.
I'm looking it up because I think I'm wrong.
Requires 2/3.
Thank you.
And call the question.
Okay.
Okay.
So now you vote.
Aaron, make sure that gets in the minutes.
Roll call, call the question.
Call the question?
Yeah, we're calling whether you want to vote on this or you want to have more discussion.
Oh, okay.
So now you're doing a roll call of the members of the board.
Thanks for that. So this is a roll call of the board to vote on the call question.
That's correct.
Yes. Okay. So I will go through.
Yeah.
Okay. Whether we should vote or not. So, okay. Al, we're gonna do a roll call for call the question to actually do the vote. All right. Yay or nay or abstain? Al?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Hilda?
Yep.
Katie? Yeah. Peter?
Yes?
Grant?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Ryer?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Nina, yes.
So now you have the motion read again, and you'll have to do a roll call.
Okay. Aaron, have you read the motion again, please? One more time. And this is again to vote on whether we.
This is the motion.
This is the motion, sorry, motion.
Motion.
Hopefully the motion. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
That the board adopts a results-based governance model with policies adapted from documents received and reviewed with procedures that are adapted from policy governance.
So that's a motion, so we have to have.
Now you do your roll call.
Okay.
Now you're voting on that.
Okay, now, okay. All right, now I'm good with this. Okay, so this is a motion to vote on if we want to go.
Got it.
So, Al,
Yes.
Nilda,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Ryder,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Nina, yes. So it passes 10 to nothing. 9 to nothing, sorry, 9 to nothing. Any questions? All right, Nilda, I'm gonna turn it over to you. Or do you want me to keep going?
No, I'll take it. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is new business, item 8. We already did 8A. So 8B is the flag raising policy first reading for discussion. You have it as attachment 8B in your packet. Bill, can you introduce that topic for us, please?
Yes, at the last board meeting, you asked to have a policy brought to you that was using the Washington Central Unified Union School District policy on flag raising. And so we edited that and brought to you this. This is the first reading. You can make adjustments, but you're in the policy adoption phase, which will take 2 meetings a minimum from what your practices have been. And I just bring you this and open up to discussion. I think, Nilda, you're taking it from here. I just wanted to say how this was.
So can we have a motion to approve the policy for discussion, please?
I would make the motion to approve the policy with the concept that the 5th bullet be changed to the flag shall remain on the school flagpole for a period of 2 months.
So we're just voting though to be able to discuss it? We need a motion to discuss it.
I think we needed a motion to have the discussion, right? Because we didn't do that yet.
Absolutely.
So we have a motion for discussion of the flag raising policy. I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you. And now Peter's requested a change to the policy for
Right.
2 months.
And also the addition of the word, the flag may be again considered for in the next year. In other words, 2 months per year, and they don't have to be consecutive, that can be up to the administration. But I'm just trying to make room on the flag for anyone, any idea that wants to be up there, rather than have one flag for the entire month or for the entire year. Everybody gets 2 months.
Okay, that's something to consider. Any other comments, discussion?
Yeah, I also have a concern about that same bullet point. And I would like to change it so that we can say that it'll remain on the school flagpole, you know, potentially through the end of the year. However, if someone, you know, if another group comes forward, that flag needs to be considered. You know, like, I don't know that if no other, you know, let's say, whatever flag it is, let's say no other group comes forward, I don't know the need to necessarily to take it down after 2 months.
Well, you're setting up the possibility of a conflict. If you've got a particular flag up there, and then someone comes along and says, we want our flag, and then now you're weighing which flag is better, you're adding value to it. Should we take this one down and put this one up? If you just say 2 months up, down, you're done, and then the other people who want it can apply to the empty flagpole with it. That's my thought, is that way you're not putting one value over the other.
So Peter, I understand that.
Yeah?
I understand that, which is why I think there needs to be some flexibility. I guess I'm saying if no one else comes forward, do we really need to take that flag down?
Yeah, because then when there's no other flag other than what we have anyway, that's an invitation for other people to apply. As long as there's a flag flying, you don't have that invitation.
Yep, I can see it both ways for sure.
Joanna's got her hand up.
Yeah.
I'll just help.
Joanna, do you have your hand up?
I do, thanks. Why can there only be one?
Why is what?
Why can there only be one
One flag?
One flag.
Well, I feel like if you have too many, then it's kind of loses the, you don't want a flagpole full of.
How many are currently on?
Two.
The Vermont and the.
They were on the US.
I drive by, I'm sure many people drive by lots of different high schools and they have flags. Multiple flags. I don't know, maybe their school has a limit, I'm not sure, but I didn't know that we need to restrict it. I'm wondering, do we need to restrict it to one?
Fryer?
Yeah, I kind of think that bullet 5 feels like it explains itself pretty well. I mean, we can say, hey, this flag is going up until someone else wants to put a flag up, and then we can take it down and put that flag up. I feel like we're arguing about something, but I feel like there's a whole bunch of flexibility as it sits now to kind of answer these questions, and I think if we put a time period on it, if we're saying only this amount of time, or if we're just leaving it indefinite, those are two problems that I definitely see being an issue. But as it sits now, it kind of just gives us the flexibility to say, when we put a flag up, when they come to us and they say, we want this flag up, we say to them simply, okay, we're gonna let you have that flag up until such time as someone comes to us with a valid flag that we wanna put up. And that's what we can say and do, and that's kind of gives us that.
But that's not what this says. It says until the end of the year.
No, it says unless the board elects a different time frame.
Okay, so every time a flag goes up, so if someone comes in September and puts a flag up, it's to the end of the year until this board decides what else?
So for instance, if the Social Justice League comes to us, or Social Justice Council comes to us and says, we want to put the Black Lives Matter flag up, we say, okay, you can put the Black Lives Matter flag up, we're letting you know that it will be up until the end of the year, or until the, I don't know,
Another flag, which is
nurses club or something, I don't know what clubs there are, but until this activity, different activity comes and says, we want to put a flag up. And I think we can just put it that way, leaves it open and free, and then we don't have to put, like you said, a value on it.
Mm-hmm.
We can just say, hey, listen, Social Justice Club, come get your flag. Another club came and.
Right, do you think, and I'm just asking, like, do you think that might be like, oh, well, this flag was up for 3 months, why does mine only get to be up for 1? Like, then we're gonna start, well, why is theirs more important, and why is this more important? And I feel like people might say, I don't wanna take down this flag.
We have a policy, Katie. The policy can drive that process, right? If we say, well, our policy says this is how our process works.
Right, but as it stands right now in that bullet, it says until the board elects a different time frame. So what they're saying right now is, if this one comes into us and says, okay, but now we want ours up, so we're gonna switch it. That's why I'm saying we need, I think,
So maybe,
No, I'm just saying, and I'm afraid that if I see an LGBTQ flag up there, I'm all about flying that. Is somebody gonna feel bad going and saying, I wanna take that one down because I wanna put this one up? Like, that might make people feel uncomfortable to say, not that I don't support this, but I wanna put my flag up.
that's why I'm saying, like, you have to be one.
Well,
I'd be leery that a flagpole becomes like NASCAR, that you have so many that nothing means anything. You want them to see the flag up there as something special. If you've got a bunch of them, you don't notice.
where you see the two and then, you know, the Black Lives Matter or the LGBT, like at me, it's like, oh, dang, like there it is.
So maybe, so I hear your point, Peter, about maybe students won't see it as you said it well, an invitation, if there's already a flag up there. I like the idea of what you said, Ryer, in terms of it being open-ended. I think that maybe there's a medium, a middle ground there where we say the flag will fly for at least 2 months. After that, if other clubs come forward, as already stated in here, as long as they meet all the criteria, then we would consider their flag. So it's kind of the middle ground. That doesn't get to what you're talking about in terms of having one more flag.
I gotta say, I feel the exact opposite. I feel the more inclusive you can be and, make it NASCAR. If everybody gets to have, their representation, that's great.
What do you do when the number of flags starts to touch the ground? I mean,
That's a
literally.
good problem to have.
Well, no, it's not, because the more you look, aren't you trying to get one flag up there that, or a flag that says something? The more you have, the less each one means.
I disagree. I think that.
Again,
I
that's
think
fine
that
with
it's, I think that it's, you know, I think it's an inclusive thing. I don't think
It's
one
like
flag.
running the Olympics. I mean, look at all the different countries that are represented. Does that say that one country is more important or less important than another?
I mean, trying to be.
But I completely understand that's what our opinion.
Yeah, okay, I do as well. I see what you're saying, I just disagree with you.
Well, anyone else have any comments? Jack, were you going to say something? I don't want to force you. I just thought you were
No,
gonna-
no, I think the board needs to have, approve whatever flag, because you could have somebody wanting a Confederate flag put up the flagpole. And that would be very inappropriate. So as long as the board has control, I like, what Ryer said, in my 50 years, I haven't seen a whole lot of inquiry into putting flags on. I don't see that there'll be 25 flags flying. In the Black Lives Matter, it's a current topic. It's a national issue, and I think students around the country have locked on to wanting that flag, and I think that's kind of unique. But I don't see that there'll be 25 different flags on the flagpole. I just don't see that. But I think there should be a policy where the board has control. And I think we're wanting a procedure for something that we may not really have to deal with, but potentially we could have 1,000 different requests for flags. I don't see that ever happening, but potentially that could happen. So I think whatever the policy is, it should first have the board have authority to say yes and no, and a procedure for replacing it. What I'm hearing from other board members is there are some that think there should be a limit to how many flags are there. And then I hear others, and I'm in the category of, if there were 5 important things, they would be, and the board approves them, and the students and the staff and the community appreciate 5 different things, I would think they would have equal setting. So.
Okay, thanks, Jack. So I'm hearing like 3 issues. We have the current policy, the way it's been warned, which we've had requested modifications. One of the modifications is putting a time limit on it. And then we've kind of thrown in this other possibility of how many flags do we want? Do we want to look at it from the aspect of, do we want to put a time limit on the current policy, or do we want to keep the policy as it is? The first recommendation was to put a time limit on the policy. 2 months was the issue that came up. The counter to that is, well, if there's nobody that wants to put a flag up, then what? And I guess I'm trying to get a take on how the board feels about the time frame. Yeah, like a yay or nay on the time frame first.
So I think what Ryer said in terms of, it says in the policy that, remain to the end of the school year and removed unless the board elects a different time frame. That does leave us a lot of flexibility.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I kind of like the policy the way it is right now, but somebody had their hand up. Is that Joanna?
Yeah, I move to put the policy through the way that it is written currently.
Okay, so that's actually the motion that is on the floor because we haven't amended that at all. So we have a motion and a second to move the policy forward in its current writing, if I'm correct on that. I think we haven't modified it. There's some discussion about it, but we didn't get a motion to modify.
Isn't this only the first reading too?
It is. We'd have to move it forward to a second reading. And a lot can happen between now and the second reading.
And this isn't down for action at this point, it's just for discussion.
No, you do, the way you do your policy adoption is you do vote to move it on to a second reading. But then you have the second reading, and that's when you get to adoption.
Okay.
It doesn't mean at the second adoption, second reading, you could not have it go on to adoption and go to a third. That's part
So
of
it's
it.
the same as is.
As it, that's what I think I hear your chair saying.
So the first adoption is not an action?
You're taking an action as a board, you're not adopting it.
Okay.
All you're doing is acknowledging that you read it and had the discussion.
Okay.
So not that we agree that we're disagreeing.
That's right. It's good for the administrator, for myself, because I'm the one who, with Aaron, draft on these, know where the sense of the board is going.
I mean, the other, I mean, if you want to play it out, the other option is to vote down the motion as it currently says, come up with a modified motion and vote on that motion. That doesn't mean that the modified one's going to pass either, but you can make a revision now. Is that correct, Bill?
Yes, you can. You can make the revision now.
We could amend this one.
That's correct. That's what I was just said. So, I mean, I just made that as a statement. I'm not saying we do it. I'm just saying we can do it. So right now we have a motion and a second to approve the policy as it currently has been, to move the policy forward to a second reading in its current form. Do we want to vote on that and see where that lands and then
Yes.
move from there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm hearing yeses, I think. Okay, so I'm going to take a roll vote on that. Peter.
No.
Katie.
No.
Grant.
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Jack.
Yes.
Joanna.
Yes.
Nina.
Yes.
Ryer.
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
Nilda. Yeah, so motion carries 9-2. 8 and no.
7-2.
7-2. Hello, I can't count. All right, thank you. So we'll have opportunity to discuss that again at the next meeting. Next item on the agenda is, where am I? These things are, I'm just looking at how many more things we have to go. It's like, whoa. Item 8C is the BFA Mercury article for discussion. You have it as attachment 8C in your packet. Bill?
Okay, I was asked by the board to bring forth both the article and the survey that was done with 42 students. And so that's in your packet.
This was requested a couple meetings ago. And I think that the report that we were given earlier tonight sort of shows that the numbers are more solid in the survey report that we discussed earlier tonight as far as numbers. And I think the number of respondents sort of often indicate the validity of a survey. So any other discussion on that? BFA Mercury article? Hearing none, I'm gonna move on.
Nilda Ryer wants.
Okay, because you're all kind of in a row, I'm having trouble seeing the hand.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Ryer.
No, I think for me, I think for me, the biggest issue was the last sentence in the last paragraph in that article, which said, that the answer would suggest the heart of the issue is twofold. One side being the lack of student trust in administration to actually bring about substantive change to the situation, and the other being a fear of bringing attention to an issue that only fuels flames. And I would just say, like, I would just say that we heard today from a member of the public that there is a concern about substantive change, and that was like words that that person used. And I just really want us to be clear about what's being done to bring about substantive change and to make it safe. Because I don't care about the survey done. I care about this 22 students who don't feel safe at school and don't feel like when they have an issue about racism, sexism, bigotry in general, that those kids feel like something's gonna be done when they bring it up. And obviously this was already an issue this year. So I don't care about the numbers given with the other survey. I care about these 22 students, and I wanna make sure that students like this are aware or know that things will be handled in a way that makes them feel safe. So I don't know, maybe we can't do anything, but I need that to be said in light of what's been happening. I need to have said that on the record, that I expect us to be better, and I want us to be better.
To find ways.
Yeah.
To make it possible to have these conversations in safe ways and to hope to bring about positive change.
Indeed.
Yes, I would agree. I hadn't really quite thought about the students. I didn't really look at the number of respondents initially. But it was pretty disturbing to read all the comments.
Well, I guess we need to just take all that information under advisement, and I appreciate you guys going on the record.
And I just look at the types of bigotry. I just look at this and there's like swastikas up. There's like racist things. I mean, we had a student who had a racist thing airdropped to her. I think there's an issue here. And even if it's 10 students, even if it's 22 students, even if it's however many students, it's something that we should be addressing more. And I understand we're like looking at it and going through it, but the time is right to do it sooner rather than later. I just need to say that.
Thank you. Well, I guess let's continue.
Yes, we do need to continue, but Ilda, I just want to say that we have been asking administration not to just tell us all the positive things that are happening. And so I just think that it's important for us to just read it, acknowledge it, and sit with it. So we don't have to solve it today. We don't have a solution today, but it is important to acknowledge it and honor it for what it is. And I think we are on some pathways to try to address it. Absolutely. I mean, we certainly had some nice representation from students this evening. You talked about putting the bid out to for forums, like, so we're going there, but we need to give it its time, its moments.
Yeah, good point. Those are good points, Joanna. Thank you. I want to move on, but I don't want to dismiss anybody. So are you guys comfortable with me moving on?
Yes.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right, 8D is policy 821, public participation at board meetings. You have that as attachment 8D. This is for discussion. It came up at one of our public commentaries at the last board meeting that we're not responding to our public. So let's have some discussion.
So,
Who's talking?
I was just going to point out, having this on the agenda, it's the second time I've request that this be put on the agenda in 3 years. There are some very stark differences between our policy and the VSBA policy in terms of the board response to public comment. Specifically, we're more restrictive than the VSBA policy. And there may be an opportunity to loosen that up a little bit. Specifically, which I think would go at least a little ways towards opening up conversations like, the one we just had around, race or, even, comments around harassment or whatever the case may be. Or at least taking down some walls around that. So I think it would be a step in the right direction to align further with the VSBA.
It would be a step in the right direction to do what?
To align with the VSBA policy and remove our restrictions on response to public comment by the board.
Yeah. Okay, Joanna?
I would support that. I completely understand and respect when situations have a legal situation around it and that we can't speak about certain personnel issues and legal matters, and I understand that, but I still think that we can talk about the issue and we can talk about our plan to address the issue instead of leaving people feel invalidated.
So I hear what you're saying, but we've been in situations also where we haven't talked about something that a board member wanted to talk about at a board meeting because it wasn't on a legally warned agenda.
Right.
And
that's why I'm supporting what Grant's saying.
How do we, fix that balance of being able to meet all the needs of everyone? I mean, when I was reading through that, I read the VSBA one in ours, and I was thinking if we had a set statement where we said something like, please move that to the next agenda, and we made a point of addressing it at the next agenda, the next meeting, with the agenda, then at least we'd have a mechanism of addressing the question or that came forward without it getting lost. And yet we still have the opportunity to prepare a response and research that we weren't breaking, the law, the rule, the FERPA, the HIPAA, the whatever regulatory body you want to throw in front of it. Because that, I think, would at least satisfy that person. The other thing we've done is we've asked the superintendent to get back to people. We did that in the fall a few times to address some of the issues that came up by individuals because it was more timely for the superintendent or his designee to get back to somebody in the next few days than it was to wait 2 weeks for a meeting. So I don't know. I mean, we could, the other option would be, if we really want to pursue changing it, would be to, I don't know, either ask administration to come up with a recommendation or put a subcommittee together. I personally don't have a problem with the way it's currently written. And I've been trying to manage it. And every once in a while, I've had that frustration that, one of those kind of, I know the answer to this question, but I can't answer it. And it bugs me that I can't. But I also understand that if you answer one of the questions, you're sort of setting the stage to answer every question, and you may not know the answer to every question. And then you're gonna sort of set up an expectation that you can't meet.
Susan has a question.
So, not so much questions, comments, yeah. So I think that, I think it's always been frustrating to me that we can't answer questions. I think that, the way you framed it, that the responses we can get back to at the next meeting. I think also setting the, the expectations that clearly by law, we can't talk about any personnel matters. And by law, we can't have a discussion about items that aren't on the warned agenda. so that's kind of the legal framework, but also adding in that piece. I mean, it seems like there would be simple questions that could be answered right then and there.
So,
And I'm not talking about policy.
I gotta add a point of information. You need to say, and this is ethically and legally, you cannot talk about student matters in a public forum. If it's connected to an individual student, you cannot talk about it.
So maybe that's also, I'm talking about, maybe that's another way to add in about, in terms of non-warned item, personnel matters.
No, I know, I'm just making sure, no one said that, so I'm adding that to the piece.
Well, I said legal matters,
So I just want to point out that it's 8 o'clock. We've got a significant amount of work ahead of us and our executive session is going to be very detailed. So I don't know how we want to proceed, but we're looking at being here like another hour and a half if we go at this pace. We could table this policy for another meeting and have a more discussion about it. I don't think this is as critical right now. And I'm just trying to think ahead. We need to approve the contract. We need to approve the side letters. We've got we've got to handle some of this other stuff because it's time sensitive and critical.
Can it be put on next meeting's agenda?
Table this can I have a motion to table this policy to the next agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jack. Peter?
Yes. Katie?
Yes.
Grant?
No.
Susan? Jack?
Yes.
Joanna?
I'm gonna go with no too.
Nina?
Yes.
Ryer?
I'll say no.
Al, Nilda, I think everybody's saying yes. I can
Here.
Nilda, no.
Who said no?
Grant, Joanna, and Ryer.
Really? I can't see, I can't hear. Oh, shoot. Grant, Joanna, and Ryer. Well, okay, so motion carries 6-3.
No.
Thank you.
No. 2.5. So it's
6 to 2.5? Oh, 6.5 to 2.5.
Thank you, Brian. I was adding.
Thank you.
We have, the next item is to bid an award for tractor replacement at SATEC. It's an action item. I need a motion to award the bid to replace the current Kubota tractor to Champlain Valley Equipment for the amount represented in the bid that you have in your packet, $51,266 with that involves a trade-in of $18,500. Can I have that motion, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Martha, anything you need to say that I need to add to this?
The only thing that I would mention is that this was based on a price quote that was back in March. And as of April 1st, they had a slight price increase. And I was just trying to find what the amount was. It's like within a couple of $100s. So if we could just modify it to be no more than $52,500 or something along those lines. I can get the dollar amount here if you want to hang on with
The
it.
maker of the motion, okay with that?
Yep.
The person that seconded, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Get the exact number. Sure.
Anything else? Any other comments?
What did he use?
We're gonna go.
Snow removal,
Oh,
field
that was-
work. Well, they have someone else, but they have to push back the banks. They've gotta they're working out there on the fields. It's used, it
used
takes
almost
off
every
trucks,
day.
it's used every day. All of our facilities have to have a tractor. To
We
do their
replaced one a year or two ago.
That was at BFA.
It's a different one.
They're not at BFA. Each facility needs their own.
Fairfield is a tractor?
No, they don't have tractors.
So not all of our facilities.
They need one. I didn't say they have
You
one.
just said all of our
Yeah, I
facilities
said
has
they need one. I said they need one.
I know, isn't that the irony? They could probably use it. 52,000.
Are we ready to vote? I can't, actually can't tell. I'm trying to put you guys in the middle here. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All right, Peter,
Yes?
Katie,
Yes?
Grant, Susan,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Ryer,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Nilda, yes. Thank you. Approved.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the FY23 Teachers Master Agreement for professionals. This is the professional staff. Looking for a motion to approve the negotiated master agreement.
So moved.
And it's my understanding that the teachers have ratified this earlier this week. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
You guys have the information in your packet. Bill, I can read the changes, right? I can talk.
Go for it. What we talked about
Yeah.
today.
So there's no language changes except for date changes. This incorporates a 3.25% increase in the index plus a step. And it incorporates a sign-on bonus for all returning teachers as long as they sign their contract by the specified due date. And that totals 5.8% new money. Any questions?
There's a question, Joanna has a question.
What's the sign-on bonus?
Sign-on bonus is a fixed amount for everyone that signs on. I think it's $1,700. Is that correct?
Yeah.
For everyone that signs on prior to June 30th.
No. Following Article 6.1, Nilda.
Excuse me, following Article 6.1, 6.1 is there or 6.4?
6.1.
Okay, it's a retention type incentive.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We ready to take a vote? Okay. All in favor, Peter?
Abstain?
Katie,
Abstain?
Grant,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Ryer,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Nilda, yes.
All right, thank you. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda. There's a total of 8 side letters. The 8 side letters have been associated with the contract in the past. They've been updated to update the dates and they've been reformatted. Otherwise, they expire in 1 year. And I think you have them all in your packet except the ESSER 1, 2, and 3 side letter, I think was missing from the packet to make the 8th side letter. And we'd like a motion to approve these side letters as they are written.
So moved.
Thanks, Al. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks. Is that Nina?
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, we're going to take the vote. Peter?
Abstain?
Katie,
Abstain?
Grant,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Gotcha. Joanna,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Briar,
Yes.
Al. Yeah. Nilda, yes. Thank you.
Okay, next item is a banking resolution. This is a housekeeping duty. We need a motion to authorize the business manager to remove Heather Odell, Brenda Comstock, Alicia Sawyer, and Brenda Goodhue, and add Aaron Smith, Judy Magnan, Ryer Erickson, and Kelsey Malbuff to the People's Trust Company student activities accounts.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jack. This is housekeeping, just to eliminate the people that are no longer working and add the people whose positions require this. Are we ready to take a vote?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Peter.
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Briar,
Abstain.
Al.
Nilda, yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is to renew the contract with Cattell, Brannigan, and Sargent. So we need a motion to renew the auditing contract for FY '22 with the firm of Cattell, Brannigan, and Sargent. And I need a second.
Second.
Thanks, Jack. Martha, anything you want to add to this?
I think I explained most all of it in the memo that's attached to your agenda, but if anybody has any questions.
Yep.
I can answer.
Any questions? Here. None, we're. Peter?
Yes.
Yes. Katie,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Briar,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Nilda, yes.
Thank you, motion carries. And next item is item we added. It's a request for unpaid leave for Mike Antoniak. And Bill, any additional information?
Mike's been out and he hopes to return on May 3rd, but his leave won't cover for that. So we're recommending that the board approve an unpaid leave. I think it's from today, maybe tomorrow, until May 3rd.
Right, and all unpaid leaves have to come before the board for approval, correct?
You only gave me COVID authorization.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so I need did I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jack. Any further discussion on this?
Thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna take a vote. Peter?
Yeah.
Katie,
Yes.
Yes.
Grant, Susan,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Briar,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Motion carries. And we have a request to replace the boiler for the Fairfield School. I need a little more name for that. Bill, can you give us a little more context and then I'll get a motion? Just a little bit.
Well, let me just say that the motion would be to accept the bid from Alliance Mechanical. And I want to make sure I've got the right one. Alliance Mechanical for the total of $242,800 to replace the 1964 boiler at Fairfield.
Okay, Does somebody make that motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's the Alan Jack Show tonight. Thank you. Any further discussion on that? Bill?
Or I can give more details if people like, I just don't know how much. I hear no answer, yes. So we put this out to bid, we invited for probably 6 or 7. We also posted it out. We had 3 attend our walkthrough. 1 submitted a bid. We have right, Martha? We have the waiver from the AOE because we got so few bids. They can do it by June 30th. We're trying to use current year funds.
And it sounds like this is the original boiler.
This is the original one. It was the #1 item in the overall facilities plan that we brought you. The facilities director said need to be replaced immediately.
Okay.
So we are trying to do that.
Yes, please.
Ready to take a vote? Okay, this is the boiler vote.
Peter,
Yes?
Katie,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Briar,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Nilda, yes.
Congratulations, we have a boiler. All right, the next item on the agenda is item 9, other business. We have warrants. Seeking a motion to approve the warrants, acknowledging that passage of this motion will act as authorization and signature of any individual board members participating remotely. Can I have that motion, please? Thanks, Al. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jack. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'll take the vote. Peter?
Yes?
Katie,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Briar,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Nilda? Yes, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Bill?
I will give 2 things. I'm going to be very brief. Today, the Secretary of Education was in Maple Run. We had a great day. I'll bring you more details at the next meeting, see what we have left in this agenda. It's very positive. He was very impressed. The second thing is we have a ESP Army negotiation that's happening next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. We have a prep meeting at 5. Today we received bids on a roof replacement that's sorely needed because we have holes in the roof. I did not get that prepped, but I will need probably 3 more board members to join us from 5 to 6 next week, and we will call you so that we can do a, because we'll have a meeting then anyway to approve that bid, and I'll get that information out to you. Okay, that just came today. I was trying to get it earlier to get it into this. There's having the time delay that we have here in April and trying to get things done is a bit of an issue, that's why.
Right, thank you. Any board announcements? I'm hearing none. Agenda for future.
Wait.
Just thank you for Nilda and Bill for the work on the P.E.G negotiation and everything that's approved tonight. Thank you.
I didn't hear anything you said, but somebody clapped, so that's good.
We're clapping for you.
Thanking you and Bill.
We were clapping for you.
Oh, well, good. Keep doing that. Keep doing that. What'd you clap for?
For doing the board negotiations, you and Bill. Or for
That was a team effort, Grant and Nina, and who else was there? Susan.
Don't forget Martha.
Yeah.
Martha.
And don't forget who?
Martha.
No, Martha's like the queen of all spreadsheets, for certain. Okay, as far as agenda for future meetings, anything special that we need to add here that we haven't talked about? Okay. All right. Potential executive session. We are going to have an executive session. We are going to talk about a student matter. Because it's a student matter, we do not need a finding to indicate that it has to be talked about in the executive session. I would like the school board and John Muldoon and Bill to be present for the executive session. And I need a motion to go into that executive session.
So moved.
Thanks. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. And we're not going to have any discussion. We're just going to vote. Peter?
Yes?
Katie?
Yes.
Grant?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Nina?
Yes.
Ryer?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
And Nilda? Yes.
So thank you all. We're going to move on to executive session.